All right, good morning. If you're listening to this, you probably scanned the glass case in the front entry at Antioch Middle School to find out a little bit more about what I've got on display there. And so there's a t-shirt, a black t-shirt in the display case, and it's from when I was overseas in Iraq. And I wanted to talk about how war doesn't always look like war. We have an idea what warfare is based on movies and video games and stories that get told. But the actual lived experience of war is very different than what we think it looks like. It's 98% boredom easily. And especially in modern warfare, it's incredible boredom. So this is what my experience looked like that you would not expect. So, first of all, that t-shirt comes from a Drowning Pool concert. Drowning Pool is a band that played when we were over in Kuwait. We spent 2 weeks in Kuwait getting ready to go up to Iraq in 2005. This would have been October and into November of 2005. They were probably there beginning of November, right after Halloween. And my unit was actually tasked with pulling security. There were about 5 of us that pulled security for the band. And so we kind of stood guard at the front of the platform where the band played their music and watched the mosh pit. It was kind of a really interesting time, especially considering Drowning Pool is a heavy band, it's not light rock. It is heavy metal. They're loud, and they're a lot of fun. They're really true rock. But their most famous song, of course, is Bodies, which got grabbed up by the military, let the bodies hit the floor. And so you'll see it in video games and some military videos. But the USO comes around and tours war zones for the U.S. to try to encourage soldiers, airmen, Marines, and sailors. Toby Keith came over for a while. I was home on leave when that happened. He came over a couple of times when I was overseas. Drowning Pool, you had all kinds of actors, singers, all kinds of different people showed up to kind of support the troops. And so Drowning Pool was my experience early in the war. Before the war, I actually got into the combat zone. So this is where we slept in Kuwait. This is where soldiers sleep. But it's not quite what you think. You can see that the guys are watching movies. There's some guys sleeping. There's some guys reading. And I'm busy taking a picture. It's not quite the environment that you see in movies. It's very, very different in some ways. We had the internet. When we got into the war zone, everybody had laptops. Everybody had digital cameras. We had telephones. We had a very, very different environment than what you would expect. So it wasn't, and this is not true for everybody. Everybody has a different experience. Every environment, every combat zone, every single person has a different experience. So there's no generic experience. This just happens to be mine. This is what I took with me. These are some gifts that I received before I went overseas. I got the book Jarhead, which had just been made into a movie. The book was published back in the 90s. The movie came out in 2005, that summer. I watched it right before I went over. That took my backpack with my computer. I had my Kevlar, of course. We were black sheep. I hadn't had a chance to change out the color for the sheep yet. But there were some gifts that were given to me by a friend before I went overseas. So this is where we ended up. This is on the south side, I believe, of the U.S. Embassy in Iraq in 2005. If you've ever seen the movie Green Zone, this is the pool where they meet up. But this is one of the palaces right there at the turn of the Tigris, right in the southeast corner of the U.S. Green Zone. Is a palace, and this is the pool at the palace. And if you look back where the signs are hanging on the left-hand side of the screen, about halfway up, there's a couple signs, and that's actually where I DJ'd. I spent my year on Fridays and Saturdays DJing country music with my gunner, a 20-year-old kid. I was the driver of the vehicle. That was my war experience. I spent 3 hours DJing music for civilians and military alike. We had a dance stage over on the right, that white. And on July 4th, the British Army, actually the band from the British Army, played patriotic music for us. So we were celebrating our independence from Britain by being serenaded by the British Army. yeah, it was really kind of crazy. But we went swimming as well. So this was my war. This is actually my gunner, Sean, and myself, and we're at country night. We're actually DJing country night. All those water bottles are provided by the government to the U.S. military because we could not drink the local water. But we're there having a good time. You can see the chemicals for the pool in front of Sean. But we did have to carry our weapons while we were there. We were armed at all times, but we were also dancing. So we had a good time. We worked with a company called Blackwater, which is a private security company. They work for the State Department. We were tasked to roll with them. So if they got in trouble, if the U.S. Army could help out. They were considered civilians. A lot of them were former military. While we were out at one location, highly armed, you can see the weapons we're carrying. When we're out in the red zone, the danger zone, the potential threat zone, and this guy had a car issue. He had trouble with one of his tires. And so he pulled up, and so the guys actually got out. They have a jack for their own vehicles, which are up-armored Suburbans. And they decided to help this guy while they were pulling security. Whoever we were escorting was inside talking to someone else. But they decided to help this guy with the jack and the lift. So it wasn't all quite what you thought war would be. This is my bathroom. This is where I literally had porcelain. I have a shower behind the second door. This was a very nice place to live. It was not hard living at all. Not hard living at all. So you have a bathroom. If you walk in that first set of doors on both sides, there was a trailer, and that trailer looked like this. This is one side. Where I'm taking the picture from is another bed. So 2 people stayed in this room. This was mine. You've got my weapon right by the door. I've got a pillowcase that I brought over with me. My pistol's hanging on the wood right in the middle of the picture. I've got a mini fridge. I've got a DVD player. I've got a TV. I have the internet. I have my laptop with me. I've got a ton of books. I've got cards that I received from students. Just a lot of stuff right there. Even baby wipes and all kinds of. We had a stockpile of candy. But life was very good. My sleeping bag I did not use once we got out of Kuwait. It's shoved underneath the bed. But this is what war was for me. I had air conditioning. I had heat. I had all the essentials of home except my family. So it was not the war that you would expect. This is actually our Thanksgiving dinner. I waited in line for forever to get into Thanksgiving. And I finally gave up and walked away. But somebody else is taking this picture. The State Department runs the chow hall. And they did this huge thing for Thanksgiving. Big ol' send-up. It was not what you would expect. Of course, this is where all the top generals and all the ambassador and all of them would eat. So this chow hall is not typical. This is the high end for the military in a combat zone. But we ate very, 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 very well. It was like going to maybe like an eatery at a mall where you had multiple choices to eat from. A food court, I guess. Kind of like in Stranger Things. So, and this is me at work. This is the second half of my tour where I had to do guard duty for the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador. I took my laptop with me. I took a book. And every day we had newspaper put out by the military. Stars and Stripes put out their own newspaper so I could read what was going on in the world. I had my Kevlar, my helmet, and my body armor down there. But that was my war experience. It wasn't what you would think it would be. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit more. War is not always what you think war should be. War is unique to each person. War is boring most of the time. The whole time I was there, I never fired a shot in anger. Never had a situation where I had to flee for my life. We had a couple of adrenaline moments, but they were few and far between. And that is not true for everyone, but that was true for my unit. So, war is not always what it appears to be in the movies. And that was my war experience. So I hope you enjoyed that. All right. Have a great day. Take care.